Okay, now I've got the frames all cut out, and I've also sanded them. And this isn't real critical on the stand-up paddleboard because all of this is going to be on the inside. You're not going to be able to see it. So I didn't spend a tremendous amount of time sanding, but I did roll the edges over, and as I need to, I can come back and touch those up. I'm also probably going to coat these with probably some tung oil or something like that just to protect them a little bit. Again, not really critical. Shouldn't be a lot of water inside the stand-up paddleboard, but just in case, and this is also marine plywood, so I'm not that worried about it. But I will do that after I have it all assembled. So I also cut out all the pieces, and you can see them over there. Those are all the pieces for the kayak. So the next thing to do is to start cutting the gunnels and all of the stringers. And so what I've done is I've gone out to my local big box store and I bought some cedar. So these are my cedar planks. They're just 1x6s. And so the first thing I'll do is I'll rip some gunnels, and the gunnels are 1.5 inches, and then I'll be ripping the chines, and the chines are 1 inch. So set up my table saw using my table here as a run out, and we'll go ahead and get that started. So I'll continue to cut, and we'll end up with a big stack of sticks, and that's the main framework for the stand-up paddleboard and for the kayak. I may need to get a little bit more cedar, but should be good. Alright, the stringers that I cut for the stand-up paddleboard and the kayak, they're not long enough. They're only 8-foot long boards. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to scarf them together in order to make them long enough. And so what I've done is I've made myself a little scarfing board here. And what this does is these are basically 1-to-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1, and 6-to-1. And what I'm doing is a 6-to-1 scarf. So it's basically for every inch here, or for every inch here, it goes over an inch. So this is 6 inches down, and this is an inch over, so it's 6-to-1. So I basically just lay the board up here and cut it, and then I will glue all those ends together. So yesterday I finished cutting up all of the cedar strips and putting scarf joints in them, and so what I did last night is I went ahead and glued them up, and this is how I glued them up, and I clamped them all together. Now you can see I put some staples in here, and these staples were just to help position them and to hold them stable. You wouldn't have to do that if you weren't doing a whole bunch of them, but I was having to do a whole bunch of them, put the clamps on them, so they were a little bit unstable, and so I went ahead and put these staples in. I will be pulling these staples out before I put it into the boat. So the kind of glue that I used is, I used a System 3 product, and it's called System 3 Gel Magic, and I got this from Duckworks. And it works really well. It's a pre-thickened epoxy, and so what I did is I just took this end off here and squeezed some out into a cup, and so it squeezes out the correct amounts, and just mixed it up, and then you put it on with a brush. Now as I get into the build, I'll be using this, and this is a little nozzle that you put on here, and so when you squeeze it out with the caulking gun, it pre-mixes it, so when it comes out of the tip of the nozzle, it's all ready to go, and so you can put it directly onto the joint, which is pretty cool, and I'll be using that later. Anyway, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the clamps off and see how these things turned out. see if anything glued to itself. I put wax paper down, and then between the boards where the joint is, I use some packing tape, and that usually works. It doesn't stick to the epoxy. So I just kind of weighted this all down with a bunch of stuff. So that's what the joints look like, and I think that's pretty good. And let's pull those staples out, and so now I've got big, long gunnels and stringers, and that should work really well. Alright, there were two pieces that I forgot to cut out when I was cutting out the plywood, and they are the foredeck for the stand-up paddleboard, which is right here. So it's the same thing, just glue down the paper, and then I'll cut this out with a bandsaw. And then also the transom, which is right here, did the same thing. Now, there's one other piece that I will need to cut out, but I'll do that after I've got the stand-up paddleboard built. And that is the deck part that you stand on. So that'll just be cut out of this 1/4 inch plywood, and then kind of shaped into what seems right.